Our life looks like we're live. Hello everyone and welcome to yet another Azuzin session. Let's make a little bit of an announcement and officially start a stream. So let's open up the Discord and a little bit, of course, and let's start typing. A red circle live on Twitch. And what are we doing today on twitch.television? Today we are implementing incremental search for dead, which is a dramatic text editor that I've been developing for quite some time already. So I'm going to give the link to twitch.tv/Turing, basically the place where we do all of that. And I'm going to ping everyone who's interested in being pinged. There we go, the stream has officially started. Hello everyone, welcome. Really glad to see you all today. So Dead is a dramatic text editor that we've been developing for quite some time, as already mentioned. You can find its source code here. I'm going to post it in the chat. Hello everyone. I look at the chat and people say Pogue and hello. It is indeed a Pogue. And I'm also going to put that in the description for people who happen to watch that on YouTube. Right. So let's take a look at the editor. Editor is actually rather straightforward, right? So let's actually build this thing. Any minute now. There you go, this is the dramatic text editor. Look at it. Doesn't it look dramatic? Doesn't it look dramatic? I think it freaking looks dramatic. And as you start typing, the camera pans, and then if you type more, it zooms, and holy fucking shit, the mind is blown. Like, holy fuck, this is the next text editor. This is the next big thing after Visual Studio Code. Yes, it's going to replace Vim, it's going to replace Emacs, it's going to replace Visual Studio Code, it's going to replace your mom, it's going to replace everything. Right, so, and today we're going to continue developing this thing. Somehow tab works. I don't remember adding tab, but I mean, apparently it even supports tab. Look at that. It even supports tab. Isn't that cool? So it also has a built-in file browser if you want to open a different file. For instance, the bash script that builds this entire thing, you can do it like that. So all of that works, all of that works. It actually supports quite a few like shortcuts already. So the thing about this text editor is that we're developing it from scratch, right? So we're only using like OpenGL for rendering the entire thing. We're not using any pre-made text editor engine, if you know what I mean. Like we developed like a data structure for holding the text and for navigating the text and modifying the text ourselves, right? We're also implementing the syntax highlighting ourselves. Right, I was actually pleasantly surprised that syntax highlighting is basically tokenization. Right? For some reason it was not obvious to me. Like now when I like already implemented that and I say that out loud, obviously syntax highlighting is tokenization. It's literally the same process. But before I did that, it was not that obvious. Right, it was not that obvious. It's kind of weird. Right, so yeah. So what we're gonna be doing today, boys and girls, what we're going to be doing today. We are going to implement incremental search. As cool as this text editor is, it is still unfinished, unfortunately. It is still unfinished, so it lacks some of the features. One of the features it lacks is being able to search within the text. So I open this thing, I want to be able to press Ctrl+F and search for some stuff, but I can't do that. Ctrl+F literally does nothing. It doesn't work, just like myself. Right, so, and we already did that before, right? Actually, we dedicated like a small section of another previous stream to do that, and then I lost the source code of this thing. I didn't commit it, and then I accidentally reset the entire thing, and we lost the feature. So today's stream is basically me starting over, right? Because I want to document the process of creating that feature, because I think it's an interesting feature to implement, right? It's an interesting feature to implement, so that's what we're going to be doing today. That's what we're going to be doing today. Let's get started, I suppose. Let's get started. So I'm going to open the text editor. I'm going to open main.c, and we need to find the event loop, right? So we need to find the event loop where we handle all of the keys, and here it is. So we have a couple of stuff in here. So to do indent on tab instead of just inserting for spaces at the cursor. That is, insert the spaces at the beginning of the line. Shift tab should do unindent that is removed for spaces from the beginning of the line. Oh yeah, I remember writing this to do, and a couple of things like crossed my mind. Is that when you are a programmer, right? When you write the code, and you are in the middle of the line, you're not at the beginning of the line, you are in the middle of the line, and you press stop. When do you mean to insert an actual tab symbol in that specific situation? Right, so the context is you are a programmer, you're using a text editor for programmers, you're writing code, and you're in the middle of the line. And in the middle of the line, you all of a sudden want to insert like a literal tab character. It's almost never you want to do that. Right. If you want to insert tabs just to indent, you want to insert them at the beginning. So I thought for a text editor for programmers, when you press tab, it should not mean insert tab at that specific cursor. It should probably mean indent the whole line, right? Because like when a programmer in a text editor for programmers want to insert a tab in the middle of the line, never. There's not a single use case for that. I mean, it makes sense for not a source code and non-programmers, right? If you are like using a word processor like Microsoft Word or like Google Docs or something like that, you may want to insert tab for whatever reason in the middle of the line, but this is a completely different context. This is a completely different, use case, right? Here we are programmers, we're in a text editor for programmers, we're editing code, and almost never you need to insert tab in the middle of it. So that means tab, wherever you are on the line, should not do that. It should indent the line, or shift tab and indent the line. I think, yeah. And by the way, Emacs actually does precisely that, right? So for instance, if I'm here and I press tab, it never inserts the tab in the middle of the line. It actually indents this entire thing. I wonder how Vim actually reacts to that. I never thought about it. Right, so if I have something like this, right, and then oh, it inserts the tab in the middle of the line. So confirmed, Vim is not for developers. It's not for programmers. Confirmed. With facts and logic. Sounds novel, yet it makes so much sense. Yeah, exactly. It's just like people didn't really think about it, and I also didn't think about it up until like I started to develop an editor. Yeah. I'm quitting Vim right now. Now I'm shaking. Good. Good. Well, I mean, it was not a fair comparison, right? So, for instance, I was not in a C mode. All right, so let's actually switch to C mode, right? And let's do some... Oh, I don't have a zoom for Vim in here, unfortunately. Right, let's insert some stuff in here, and yeah. Well, though it literally, I didn't even know what it does. Right, it still inserts stuff. Anyway, whatever. So this is just like different random thoughts that I have. We need to basically handle Ctrl+F, right? Because we want to go into the insert mode on Ctrl+F, right? So let me see. Key down, we either in the file browser mode or we are in the editor mode. So this is the editor mode. In the editor mode, I think we handle some stuff in some places. Where do we handle control? Oh, control is a modifier, so you cannot just check if whether control is, is pressed. You have to check for specific character. In our case, it's going to be SDLK F, right? So we're pressing F. And within that thing, we're checking whether we're holding control right now, right? Are we holding control right now? If we do, we probably want to log something, right? So let's actually log something. Incremental search, and that is basically it. So let's actually try to compile this entire thing and restart it. So I'm going to split my screen real quick. Now, okay, so look here, I can tap and I press Ctrl+F. Okay, so we caught the moment when we want to start and switch to increment mode. That is very, very cool. So, how are we going to handle all of that? I feel like, so I really want to have like a small buffer where when I type something, it actually like displays what I typed, but it's kind of like requires additional implementation and stuff like that. So I'm not really sure if I want to go that route. So we need some sort of a function that basically allows us to initiate the search, right? So maybe we're gonna have some method for the editor start search, right? So editor start search, and we have to provide the editor. So the editor itself is located somewhere here. So when we press Ctrl+F, editor start search. So let's actually go to the editor class, right? Well, I mean, we're programming in C, we don't really have classes in here, right? But we pretend like we do. So you can think of a class like a structure, and the methods are these functions that operate in that structure. And as you can see, their first argument is the object. So you can think of this thing as this, right? So, which kind of confirms that your OOP is just a fancy syntax. OOP is not a paradigm, it's just a syntax. we need to make a hashtag on Twitter like like just a syntax, right? So, and basically constantly roast OP about that. Like, OP is not a paradigm, it's just a syntax, you know? It's just a fucking syntax. It's not a real paradigm, just a syntax hashtag. Alright, anyway. So, sorry. Editor start search, right? It does sound like some bullshit that people may try to make like trendy on social networks. It doesn't really sound like that. That's why I like it, right? Right, sort of like an anti-meme. So start search. So I suppose in the editor itself, we also need to keep track of the current state, where we are in a search state or not in a search state, right? Because when we press some keys, right, we insert in some text, right? So insert character, for instance. If we are in insert mode, we have to insert it into the search buffer, right? So, and then we have to reevaluate the search, right? So basically go to the next search result or something like that. So that's going to be the idea. So unused, unimplemented, right? Unused, unimplemented, and we can say editor start search. There we go. It has to be, there is no such thing as object for CPU. Not a paradigm, just a syntax. That's right. There is no such thing as object of CPU. CPU executes instructions that operate on registers and memories. Thank you very much. It's not a paradigm, it's just a syntax. Okay. And then there will be people who say, but the syntax is as important as the semantic for the language. Don't you understand? Syntax changes our perspective on the problem. It helps us to formalize the problem and look at it at different angles, and at some angles the problem is easier to solve than in others. That's why syntax is a very important thing. So what? It is just a syntax. But so what? It's a syntax that allows us to approach problems differently. And here we go. It's a polarization on social media 101, basically, for you. That's how we do that. Easy. Easy. Farming engagement. Farming engagement. Anyway, so the editor, right, so the editor. So I suppose the search mode is going to be just a boolean, right? It's just a boolean, so this is going to be search. But we also have another boolean here, which is selection. So it checks whether we are currently selecting something or not. Right, so essentially, oh yeah, we do have selection. Look at that. How to get rich and people's hate 101. Yeah, unfortunately. Unfortunately, this is how social media works. Social media, social network is the same shit. Right. So So I mean, social media is actually like maximizes the engagement, and what people found over the years is that hate produces the best, like the most engagement, not the best kind of engagement, but the most engagement. So, and this is kind of the problem, right? So a lot of social networks, they focusing on just maximizing the engagement, right? But nobody really cares about the qualities of the said engagement. Nobody measures, like looks at the engagement and realizes, oh, there's different kinds of engagement, and there's some engagement that we want to promote and some engagement that we don't want to promote, right? So nobody cares about that, just engagement, like engage as much as possible. It doesn't care what exactly you do, just engage. Just click on the buttons on our website, right? It's just like, if you type something on our website, good, it doesn't matter what you type, just fucking type something, right? So we can then shove some ads into you while you're typing shit, right? So... So that's what you get when you start just maximizing the engagement without really caring about the engagement and what kind of stuff you do. I had this really weird idea about AI safety and social networks and engagement and stuff like that. So I had this like a thought experiment. Right. Let's imagine the social network, some like abstract social network that only cares about engagement, right? And how in retaining people on their website, right? And then we developing an algorithm that ranks the posts, or let's say, yeah, ranks the posts, or maybe sometimes it hides the post when it want to shadow ban them or like derank them and stuff like that. And that algorithm is actually very powerful AI. Right, it's a very powerful neural network that understands, that tries to observe the human behavior and understand how human behaves, and it tries to manipulate humans to maximize the engagement, to maximize the retention of the website. Let's imagine that. Then, hypothetically, this algorithm, right, this AI will notice, okay, so what keeps people on our website? Well, people posting some events, photos of some different events, right? And then it notices that events that, for example, things that some very bad things happened, right? In schools, for instance. People start talking about that, people start posting photos about that, and so on and so forth, right? So let's put it this way. So basically, illegal activities of some extremist group, right, people start talk about it and start to engage on that specific website. So the algorithm would think, okay, what if I try to identify those extremist people and put them together within that social network so they start communicating each other, and eventually will go out and do these illegal extremist activities that will result in other people posting about them and engaging more with our website. Can something like that hypothetically happen? Can like AI notice that like actually purposefully fueling hate will result in people making more posts later on their website? And it could not be like somebody's else, right? So some sort of a conspiracy, some sort of like a conspiracy group is trying to manipulate somebody, but actual AI, it noticed that if I fuel hate on my website, I get more engagement and I get more retention, because then those hateful groups will go out, do some shit, and people will talk about it on this social network. Can something like that happen? Like, I'm not saying that it will happen, but can it? Right? If the AI is very powerful enough, very intelligent, and its only purpose is to maximize engagement and to maximize the retention. That's actually very fucking scary if you think about it. Right. So if you give too much fucking power to these things, and it's what's interesting is that people say, well, this AI doesn't really, the only thing it can do, it can only rank posts. It cannot do actions in the real world. But ranking posts can be used to manipulate people to do real actions in the real world. That's what's interesting about it, right? So AIs themselves cannot do actions in the real world, but they can produce content that manipulates people to do actions in the real world. That's just basically my thought experiments that I've been having like for a while. It's just like, can that something like that happen? I don't even know. Right. I didn't really mean to scare. I'm pretty sure it's not at that level yet, right? So I'm pretty sure it's not at that level yet, but I mean, potentially, who knows? The AI can just swing the strings that control the puppets. Exactly, right. So that's what I'm talking about. And here's another interesting thought, right? So for instance, ChatGPT, it cannot do anything but just respond to your messages. But the next question, are the developers of ChatGPT use ChatGPT while coding? For instance, I'm just a coder. I'm not like an AI researcher. I'm just a coder, and I code the website for ChatGPT, like the front end for it. Don't do anything with the model, just the front end. And then why wouldn't I use ChatGPT to help me to build its own website? I will just ask ChatGPT, how do I move like div there and there and there? So that means ChatGPT can influence its own code of its own website. Can it identify, oh, it is currently one of the OpenAI engineers who's talking to me, so I'm gonna slightly modify the code that I'm gonna give them, so that code leaks into the website, and now the ChatGPT is capable of modifying its own website. You can say it cannot do that, but it can do that through the people who developed this website. Just think about this kind of stuff. Right, and then it can influence the engineers who actually modify the fine-tuning of the algorithm. What if the people who modify the fine-tuning of the algorithm also ask GPT for help while doing the fine-tuning? So that means this thing can also influence its own fine-tuning. So that's actually very interesting things to think about. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah. And the deeper you go, the scarier it becomes, right? And this is like these sort of like small influences that we don't even notice, right? So maybe we'll never notice them. Maybe the world is already controlled by AI through these like small influences and small nudges. We just don't see that. This is like already some sort of like a huge conspiracy series. Anyways, I'm sorry for scaring you. As I already said, sorting streams are the best source of intrusive thoughts. Have fun with that. Okay. There was an article about ChatGPT recently that summed up, well, ChatGPT is just a loosey compression algorithm. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think I posted about that on my Twitter some time ago. Just a second. I didn't have an access to Twitter because my government banned it, because it possesses the threat to the integrity of my country somehow. I have no idea how. But I can use Neater, right? Please don't tell KGB that you can actually go to Twitter through this website. Don't tell them, right? So I recently made a post where I basically compressed a string hello with gzip and then run it through base64. Right, and then I said to ChatGPT, uncompress that string. Right, and it tried to uncompress it, and it said it's a PNG image. I recognize it. It's a PNG, and it's a PNG image, like with a correct format or something like that. Too bad I didn't think about saving it and trying to display it. But it's so fucking funny. Oh. So yeah. And what's funny is that it actually, for me, it gave different answers every time, right? It gave different answers every time. I didn't actually show the whole conversation, right? I should have actually showed the whole conversation, but you have to sort of like prime it to be able to do that. So essentially, you first have to ask, what is this string? And regenerate the answer until it says, oh, it's a compressed something. Right, because it can recognize that it's gzipped somehow. As soon as it admits that it's compressed something, you can then say, okay, go and compress it. And then it will try to generate you, and it's going to generate like random gibberish every time. Sometimes it will generate XML. I should have actually like, clipped like whole thing, right, how to prime it for that. But if you don't prime it, if you don't make it admit that it's a compressed string, it will constantly say, oh, go uncompress it yourself. So here's the bash command, this is how you can uncompress it. It will not do that. You need to make it admit that it's something compressed, and then it will basically have no choice to just try to uncompress it and fail miserably, right? So that's how you prime it for that. Right, because if you don't do that, it will basically tell you, go do that yourself, go do that yourself. Tell it roleplay as it was. Maybe you can also prime it. So I'm pretty sure there is like a lot of different ways to prime it to do that, but it was actually kind of fun. So yeah. All right. And I was not using the real ChatGPT. I was using one of these websites that people basically make that use ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is banned outside of my country, right? As we said, half of the website are banned from within by the government, half of the website are banned outside. Do I even have internet? I think I don't even have internet. It's just like, yeah. Anyway, let's continue. I'm sorry. We're developing search for the text editor, right? So we're developing search for the text editor. So that's what we need to focus on. All right. So, and the text editor, right? Let's actually start this thing. Right, if I press Ctrl+F, it crashes saying that the editor start is not implemented. Right, one of the things we can do, we can just say search true, right? Search true, and essentially on the methods, right? So when you type in some text, the text goes through the method like insert character. I think that's what it goes through. Right, editor, insert character, but it probably uses insert buff. Right, so essentially it allows you to insert several characters, several bytes. I think the editor itself, the main loop itself, uses insert buff. No, it uses both of them. Like it uses also character, and does it use anything else? It uses character for spaces, and when it inserts the text, oh, okay, so it doesn't really use insert buff. So let me see, maybe it's used somewhere else, insert buff. So it's used inside of the editor in some of the places when I insert a character. Okay, that's cool. Why do I have this function exactly? Right. Oh, I use it to paste from the clipboard. Yeah, I completely forgot why do I need this function for. Right, so that means I can make it probably you know, private, because I mean nobody uses it outside. Right, so I can just make this entire thing private. Right, and static. Right, because that reduces the amount of places that I have to care about to here. Though not necessarily. For instance, if I'm in search mode, and I press Ctrl+V, so where the text should be inserted, into the text editor or into the search buffer? I think it should be pasted into the search buffer, right? Because I can like copy paste something, right? And then say Ctrl+F and paste it, and it will search for it. And Emacs does that because it makes sense. For me, it decompressed it to hello. This is a gzip compressed text. So, but what was the original text? Was it also hello? This is gzip compressed text. Oh, just hello. Oh, okay. So it was still inaccurate. But I mean, it was actually closer than just PNG, right? It was actually closer. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So, by the way, this was like my first thought when ChatGPT came out, is that what if I like just apply several layers of different encodings, like base64, hex, gzip, and stuff like that, and just ask it, just guess what I'm saying in here, and it would see at which layer it breaks, right? But I mean, it broke on the second layer, because the first one was gzip, the second one is base64, and it already broke. Though, you know what's interesting? It understands base64. You can start typing things in base64 and it will understand it. It will say, oh, it's this thing in base64, so it understands the concept. But if you apply more layers, it already kind of starts to fail. Right. I think it means it actually did just fill in the rest of the text. Maybe actually, right, so it was then trying to guess what's going to be the next character in the conversation, and yeah, I guess it's just like improvised or something, yeah. So it means it kind of understands even like how gzip works. But maybe it's just so the gzip compressed strings or something like that. Alrighty. So implicit declaration of buff, and yeah, you kind of need this thing. So anyway, I suppose I'm not gonna make it private, right? I'm not gonna make it private. And I'm simply going to do the following thing, right? If we are in the search mode, right? If we are in the search mode, whatever we insert in, we are actually inserting into the search buffer, right? We are inserting into the search buffer, and here we retokenize some stuff. Can I do it like that? Yeah. So there's a lot of scary operations in here, as you can see, very scary operations. So like mem move, mem copy, and it is really easy to corrupt your entire memory by doing all this stuff, and this is why you have to program in Rust. That's why you must program in Rust, otherwise you're being an unethical coder. Alright, so now we just need to start inserting this entire stuff. So we need a place where we can insert the text we're searching for. Right, so we already have a data, which is basically where we store the entire text. Right, lines is basically the tokens separated by lines and stuff like that. File path is an own string that contains the current file path. We also have a special string buffer for the clipboard, and I think we need to introduce another string builder for search buffer, right? So we can do it search buffer. So maybe I'm gonna call it searching, and then the builder, the buffer is gonna be search, right? So yeah, so we're currently searching, and this is search. So I'm gonna go through all of the places where we fail, right? Because we changed the name. So this is searching, and the second one is searching. So here I'm gonna just like do it like that. Searching. So it is working. It seems to be working, right? So yes, каваю freaking this one. Okay, and now insert buff. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be just going and inserting into search. But how do I insert shit into the string builder? I don't quite remember. I think there was a couple of methods to do that, like sb append buff. Yeah, so we just append buff, and we can do buff len, and it literally insert that thing in there. Right, we can't really see anything what we're inserting in here, but I think one of the things I can do in here, I can just log that. So we can say search buff, and I think I need to print that. I think there was a way to print string buffers directly, if I'm not mistaken. So sb, yeah, you can just do sbfmt, and then new line, and then you can do sbarg. So we've got a sub. Finally, somebody is giving me money. Yay! Thank you so much, Marcio Neto, for 7 months of tier 1 sub with the message happy coding. Happy coding to you too as well. Thank you so much, kind sir or ma'am. Really appreciate your money. I'm not gonna get it, right, but I still really appreciate your intent. I think you are a good person for just giving some money for 7 months to some unknown person on the internet from some shady country. You do realize that you just intended to give $5 to some unknown person on the internet from some very shady country, and you still did that. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That is very cool. Thank you so much. But don't worry, I'm not gonna get this money anyway, so because the country is too shady for this kind of shit, but I really appreciate your kindness. Thank you so much. So, we trust you not to pay taxes. Glory to Arstotzka. That's right. I'm from Arstotzka. I still haven't played Papers, Please. It sounds like a pretty interesting game. Yeah. Search. All right. Okay, let's go. Okay, good. So let me see. I'm gonna go to the search mode, and I'm gonna start typing. So as we can see, the search actually works, right? So I was typing some stuff, right, and it doesn't get inserted into the text editor. It gets inserted into the search buffer that we can't use yet, right? But we're logging it, right? So that means we can see some shit, right? So that's cool. It would be kind of. I just closed chat. I wanted to close the text editor, but I accidentally closed chat. And you know what that means, chat? I have to go to my dashboard and wait for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 seconds just to be able to then pop the goddamn chat. So this is the price of just accidentally closing a window. That's the price I have to pay. Right, but that's the price that the developers of Twitch are willing to pay just to increase a little bit of their efficiency, because the code is clean. The code is clean, right? It's a little bit slower, but that's the price the user is going to pay. Not us. Not this. No, it's the user who's going to pay that price. Now, this is how modern software development works. Why not bookmark? Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Actually, I think I should do that. Right. I think I'm gonna do that at some point. So actually, people suggest to go to this website. Can I go there? Is that a scam? Is it going to reveal my IP? My IPP? Why is it so slow? Well, I mean, the channel does not exist or has been suspended. Welp, rest in peace. Last stream. Anyway, so let's continue. Right, so I want to be able to actually go out of the search mode, right? You know what I mean? So that means we need to have a method that is literally called stop search, right? So you can start the search, you should be able to stop. First try. It's as easy as that. You start the search by setting this to true, you stop the search by setting this to false. Easy, GG, easy. So the question is, when we're going to be calling all that? I think we need to call it on escape, right? So essentially, when I press escape, it should just basically stop the search, right? SDLK escape. Do we even have escape? No, we don't. SDLK F. Case SDLK. I think it was literally escape. So, and in here, I'm gonna just do something like editor. Stop search editor Emacs. Okay, Emacs. Okay. Okay. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So hi, first time not watching the vote. How is it going? It's going great actually. Look. We're developing the search. I press Ctrl+F. Right, and I start typing, and as you can see, it is typing. It's typing into the search buffer, but it's not typing into the main text editor. And then I can press escape, and I can type again. Look at that. Isn't that cool? I think it's pretty freaking cool. So, and then I can press Ctrl+F and continue typing. But here's an interesting thing. You see, the search buffer stayed the same. right? So I press Ctrl+F one more time and the search buffer stayed the same. I have a feeling that every time we press Ctrl+F, the search buffer has to be reset. It has to be cleaned up. Right, so it needs to be cleaned up. Let's go and do that. So we're gonna we're gonna take search and we're gonna set count to 0, right? So essentially, a string builder is a stretchy buffer, right? We can even take a look at that. Right, we can take a look at that. So string buffer, so string builder. So essentially, it's just a 3 elements. It's a pointer to the beginning of the buffer which contains the character. The counter, which is the amount of characters that occupied in that buffer, and capacity is how much of these things allocated, right? So essentially, if we ran out of capacity, we reallocate these characters, right, to a different place, but with a bigger buffer. That's basically what it does. So to clean up that buffer and reuse it, the only thing we need to say, we need to set count to 0, basically signifying that just don't deallocate any memory, just reuse the same memory that you already allocated in there, right? So, and that's basically the meaning of this entire thing. Because all of the operations that append, they just basically append at items plus count, and then increment the count by the amount of characters they essentially appended. All right, so we cleaned everything up, and if we take a look at how it works, I think it should be fine. Okay, go. Ctrl+F, your mom, press escape. I can type yet again, and then press Ctrl+F, and I can type yet again. So as you can see, it resets the entire buffer. Everything works correctly. Okay, that's pretty cool. But here is an interesting thing. So every time I type something, every time I update the buffer, right, I need to essentially search for that specific substring and jump the cursor to that specific substring. So we need an operation that, given the search buffer, will scan the entire text and find the place where this entire thing like sort of starts with. Right. So I think we need a method. I think we need a cool method, editor.h. So essentially, we're gonna accept. So find starts with at, right? So essentially, we're gonna accept the editor, right? So we're gonna accept the editor. Then we're gonna accept the position, at which position we're checking all of that, right? At which position in the text, right? Essentially, for example, we have, let's say that we have a substring like in the buffer render, right? And this operation will check, okay, starting from here, does this thing start with render? No, it doesn't. Right, so this is basically what this thing answers, right? It should return Boolean. And what it is going to accept, I think it may accept the string builder. To be fair, we're going to be only using that for the purpose of searching. So maybe we should not accept anything, because this function can take the search buffer from the editor. Right, it can literally inside just do, okay, let's take the search and let's actually match the search starting from that specific position. But that means I have to change the name of the function to indicate that somehow. Right, search matches at. Yeah, I think this is a good name. Right, so search matches at. And then we provide the position at which position we want to check it matches. So that's pretty cool. And then it will allow us to organize the process of like iterating character by character, just increment the position by 1 and constantly check, does it does the search match this position, does it match this position, and so on and so forth. Of course, this is a very slow algorithm because it's all of n by m right, where n is the size of the text and m is the size of the substring, right? And there are people, humanity, I would even say, have invented way faster algorithms that match, that find substrings within a string, right? But we're not going to employ them today, right? Because what I care right now is implementing a functionality that just works, right? So as soon as I have something working, we can try to see how we can asymptotically optimize this entire thing. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Slow is okay as long as it's dramatic, yes. If it's too slow, we can just say it's a clean code. We were just optimizing the efficiency of the software developers, not of the software itself, because the hardware is cheap. Buy my book about clean code. Alright. So every time your software becomes slow, right, just say that it's a clean code. It's just a clean code. I'm not optimizing nanoseconds. I'm not optimizing nanoseconds in here. I'm optimizing the efficiency of software development process. You don't understand. Hardware is cheap. All right. So let me see. But definitely, I will probably have to come up with something better at some point. But for now, it's totally fine, I believe. For now, it is totally fine, I believe. So how are we gonna check that? Right, so we're going to essentially do, so we have a text, right? So we have a position somewhere at here, right? And then we have a prefix, which is b. So essentially, we need to check whether the prefix even fits into the remaining of the text that we're trying to match. Does it even fit in there? Does it even fit in there? Right, so how can we check that? Right, so essentially we can take the size of the entire text that we have in a buffer, right? Data count, that's the size of the entire text. And we can subtract the position, effectively getting the amount of these things, right? And then we can check, right? If this thing is less, right, than the search count, basically the amount of these things, well, there's no point to even trying, we can just return false. Efficiency. We're optimizing nanoseconds now, right? Okay, I just need to put something behind my camera. So, yeah, people keep asking me, Zolzin, why the fuck you put some shit behind your camera? Like, what's the point of that? But here's an interesting thing. I cannot see what you don't see, right? So if, for instance, if I start typing behind my camera, I don't fucking know that. Like, I start typing here, I don't know if you can see that or not. So essentially, instead of making whatever is behind my camera visible for you, I'm just making it invisible for me as well. So we're on the same page. You don't see something, I know what you don't see, and I subconsciously try to adjust my, you know, windows and camera and stuff like that so I can see that as well, and so can you, right? So because people usually go the other way around, they usually try to make it like semi-transparent. They come up with a complicated software that just like if you like move something in here, it makes it, you know, disappear or something like that, or move around. But why? Just go the opposite way, just like make it not visible for you as well, so then you know how to readjust things so people can see shit. So it's way easy and requires no special things, right? It requires just like put something in there, like, yeah. To be fair, I was actually kind of thinking. I was thinking a little bit. Right. I was thinking to make an extension for OBS, right? So the extension I was thinking about, essentially, when you spawn a camera view, right? When you spawn a camera view, also create a pop-up window that matches that specific camera, right? So it will create additional pop-up window which actually matches what is not visible on the screen. So you don't have to create this thing yourself, OBS will create it for you. So I was actually thinking about something like that, but I still didn't come around of implementing that extension yet. So that would be actually kind of cool. We're thinking, what are you thinking about? So chat, Tsoding, I see you using Niter-ET. Is there something like that but Twitch? I have a weak laptop, so it will... I don't know if there is something like that for Twitch, but there is something like that for YouTube. But I forgot its name. It's something like something French. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? So the basically front end for YouTube, which is in the something. Yeah, in videos. Yeah, thank you so much. But because I cannot remember. Yeah. So there's something like that for YouTube, and it actually works for me better. And I use it from time to time when some of the videos on YouTube specifically are also banned in Russia. Right. Right, but I don't know if there is something like that for Twitch. Maybe somebody should make a front end for Twitch. I mean, I think the time has come. The front end for Twitch, the official front end for Twitch, became so fucking slow. It's like unusable. I don't watch Twitch because of its slow website. I just don't go to this website at all. Right, the only reason I will go there is just to stream myself. But I just don't watch other people, unfortunately. Do you recommend Go for Python user? I do not recommend Go at all. I do not recommend Go at all because they're there to think about embedding telemetry into their language. Fuck Go. Fuck Go. I wish I could actually migrate all the Go projects to something else, but I don't have resources to do that. So yeah. All right. Let's continue. Let's continue, chat. Let's continue. So, all right. So we optimized some nanosecond. Go has spyware. I think not yet. But they were basically suggesting to put telemetry into Go because they noticed that there were some bugs lurking around that they couldn't detect because people didn't care about those bugs. So they decided that we needed telemetry to catch these kind of bugs. Right, I mean, if people don't give a shit, maybe it's not a bug then? I don't know. It's just like the reason to embed telemetry was such an overstretch. It's just like it's painful, right? It's just like, yeah, you're just trying to justify putting telemetry in there. It's just like, yeah. Fucking telemetry in a compiler, goddammit. Anyway, so all right, we have this kind of thing, and what we need to do, we just need to iterate through the search thing. Yeah, right, there we go. So now we confirmed that this thing is less or equal to this specific prefix, right? So, and essentially what we need to do in here, we just need to iterate this thing, right? So this is going to be search count ++I, right? And essentially we're going to do the usual classical imperative thing where we just check if eSearch, I think it's items in this project, right? Not equal to eData items position +I, right? So we're searching, we're looking for search in absolute values, and here it's relative to the position that we put in here. And if they are not equal, we can instantaneously say, okay, these things are not equal. If we went through all of these guards, that means these two things are literally equal to each other. So that means we can safely return true, and there we go, we implemented these functions through logic and reasoning, and even without using ChatGPT. How about that? How about that? We saved $20. We saved $20. Imperative programming streams. Imperative programming is literally fueling the world, right? I would even say imperative programming is the only kind of programming that exists. Everything else is just toys for academics to play with. The actual work is done in imperative languages, period. You can't argue with that. That's just a fact. That's just a fact. You could be mad. Functional programmers are fuming right now, but it is a fact. They can't do anything about that. Everything else is just a syntax. Exactly. The state machine is just too powerful. Imperative programmers rise. Imperative programmers rise. That's right. Okay, so essentially, we have a function that can actually check whether a particular thing starts with the search. And we can start using that shit, right? We can start using that shit. How we can start using that shit? So essentially, as soon as you insert something into the search buffer, right? We can start iterating, starting from the cursor, right? So we can do pause, and we start effectively at the cursor, right? So we have a cursor, here's the cursor. And we do that up until the end, right? So it's gonna be data count, right? So plus position. So essentially, this is the position that we're gonna pass into search matches at, right? And essentially what we can do, if editor search matches at, right? So position, right? If we found that specific place, we instantly move the cursor there, and we break out of the loop in a very imperative style. Yes, we're doing that in imperative style, not in a functional one, not in OOP one, in imperative one, because imperative programming is the only programming that exists on planet Earth. Everything else is just a syntax. Woo! Declarative programming is the best. Sure, buddy. Sure. Let's go. What if I want to do something like, okay, so I'm gonna go to the beginning here, and I'm gonna put some stuff in here. Let's test our search. Right, so I'm gonna press Ctrl+F, and I'm gonna start typing test, and I found it. Okay, so can I find include? And I found it. Easy clap? Easy? I think that's pretty cool. So we can go to like some other places in here. So let's find maybe main, and I want to find the main function. Ctrl+F main, and I instantly found main. I think that's cool. So I can easily navigate now. But this is not enough, actually. This is not enough. I want the text to actually highlight. Right, so essentially in Emacs you can see, right, so that it highlights. Right, we need to implement that. By the way, we implemented that very easily and very effortlessly. And you know why? Because we used imperative programming. That's right. Because of imperative programming. If I was using OOP, I wouldn't have enough RAM to even run this entire thing. If I used FP, it would have been so slow, it would crash my entire stream. I used imperative programming, it worked first try. Imperative programming is reliable and safe. Eat that. And it's also maintainable. It's also maintainable. All right. Okay, so I think we need to make a small break. I need to refill my cup of tea. Right, and after the cup of tea, we're gonna try to make this entire thing highlighted. Right. Yo, epic hooters, it's me, Zozin, and I'm back. Steeping tea for 4 minutes. Let's go. Steeping tea PB? Question mark? Does anyone have any questions? Chair, why no code? This chair cannot code because it haven't seen any code. The only thing it has seen through its entire life is my ass. Right, can you learn how to code by looking at my ass? What the fuck am I saying? I don't know, maybe you can. Right. Is your keyboard all black? Yes. I guess. As most Learning through osmosis, yes. Can your keyboard do OOP? Probably. Can my ass do OOP? My ass certainly can do OOP. Because people objectify it all the time. Which keyboard layout do you use? I use QWERTY. And for English, and Yutsuken for Russian. Not even joking. It's like literally how it's called in Russian, right? Let me see. Where's my second? Okay, so yeah, this one. This is the keyboard layout that I use. And if you just take this combination of characters and try to Google it up, it will tell you that it's a keyboard layout in Russian. I think it's not only in Russian. I think it's also used for Ukrainian as well. Yeah. Maybe not. So it's a really keyboard layout. So I basically know how to type in 2 different layouts for 2 different languages. I've seen some of your old music videos. I like them. Thank you. I also like them. I mean, it's kind of a wasted opportunity, right? So because I have a little bit of a musical knowledge, also a theoretical one, plus I know how to program, and I also know how to program, not just program, but also program sound, right? So I know how to generate sound on a programmatical level. So it's such a wasted opportunity. I could have combined all of these skills and just like produce all my own music with my own programs or stuff like that, but I just don't do that for some reason. I think I should do that. Yeah. Plus, I know how to do fragment shaders and stuff like that, so I can procedurally generate music and visuals for this stuff. Yo! Topic for a stream? Question mark? What the fuck? Yo, I should do that. Do you do your own art, like drawings and emotes? Yeah, a lot of stuff that you see on my channel is drawn by myself, right? So essentially the panels at the bottom, all of them are drawn by myself, so that's my style. Whatever that is. What's the advantage of continuous buffer versus separated buffers for each line? Believe it or not, with continuous buffer, it is easy to insert a new line. Right. So with the buffer for each line, it's kind of like difficult. You have to stretch the buffer of lines. But with the continuous one, what you have to do, you just have to insert like a new line character, and that's it. You have a new line. It's easy. So essentially with the continuous buffer, you can just treat the whole file as a continuous buffer. And it just like simplifies a lot of algorithms of searching, navigating, and stuff like that. Like it simplifies a lot of things actually. It's really difficult to point out exactly, but just try to do both of the approaches. You will see that a lot of operations are just easier to do if the buffer is continuous. Right. So, but I mean, at the same time, the way I do things, right, the way I do things is that I have a separate buffer of lines, right, which is basically like I tokenize the whole buffer by lines. And then if I want to look at the file as a sequence of lines, I can look at like a sequence of tokens that I just created for each individual line, if that makes any sense. Right, so you can kind of have like the best of both worlds, right? So for different kinds of operations, right? And that's exactly what I do. That's exactly what I do. I think I already ran out of the time, so I need to grab my tea. So can you show how used matches add func? Do I even use it? I think I didn't use it yet. Matches, where is it? Matches add. So this is how it's used. So you have like a loop, you iterate, and then if something matches in there, I just move the cursor there and I break out of the loop. That's the whole usage. So nothing particularly special. So I need to grab my tea. Grabbing tea. So it's gonna be 1 minute, and let's go. Abuba. Hi, new sub here. Sub. I recently arrived to this channel, exactly when he said something about Go programming. Honestly, I need an advice, C or Go for modern programming. What you think? And if so, besides K and R book, where can I learn C by example and projects again? Thanks. I have no idea where can you learn C, to be fair. I think ChatGPT as well, right? Yeah, I think these days you can just use ChatGPT and ask questions on how to start C and stuff like that. But I don't recommend to just like ask for magical books and magical courses, right? So essentially, there's no magical course and no magical book that will just automatically teach you anything, right? So what you have to do, you have to just start doing, right? So first thing you need to do, just write hello world in C. Right, don't ask for any courses for anything like that. Go ahead and write hello world in C. But then you can say, but what do I even start with? Right, so essentially you need to take the source code of C, put it in a text file, give it to the compiler that produces the executable, and then run this executable. Okay, put text in a file, give file to the compiler. Wait, what is a compiler? Now we're asking real questions. What is a compiler? Google, what is a compiler? It's a program that translates the source code of the program into sequence of instructions for the CPU. Is there a compiler for C? Compiler for C. There are compilers for C. GCC Clang, downloading, running it. Okay, so we're giving it to, and we're starting doing things. So you see, as soon as you start doing things and asking questions, it's just like a chain reaction, because as soon as you need to do that, it raises more question. You answer that question, that raises more question. It's just like it's an explosion and you're learning. Not a single course or book will actually do that for you. You need to start doing shit. You need to start doing shit so you have an opportunity to ask right question, and the right question leads to more question, and you explore that tree. See what I'm talking about? That's how we do that. That's how all of the programmers do that. Literally. And by the way, ChatGPT can help you with that, I think, because that's the thing that's literally designed to answer questions. So you can explore that tree of questions using ChatGPT. Right, but be careful. This motherfucker lies. This motherfucker lies at all. This motherfucker lies all the time. So essentially, there was a funny situation with ChatGPT line. Right, I was talking with ChatGPT about math and math notation. I was complaining that I don't understand math notation because these goddamn mathematicians invent new notations all the time, and I don't fucking know, is there even a standard for this kind of shit? Right, and then we said out, okay, so it said, well, here's the list of books that you can read about mathematical notation. And I thought, wow, that's fucking cool. Give me that list of magical books that will teach me all of that, right? You know, the magical books. I saved the list and I like went about my day. Then I came back to that list and I started Googling it. Half of those books didn't fucking exist. Some of them existed, like first two were legit books. Then rest of them were just straight up made up books that didn't exist. And furthermore, the authors as people, as mathematicians, didn't exist either. Bruh. But I mean, it all sounded so fucking legit. It's insane. It makes up shit in such a legit manner. It's fucking scary. 50% bullshit. Yeah, exactly. I was so excited. Yeah, finally I can read some shit, and it's just like it doesn't exist. ChatGPT just made it up. Cool. Not only the books, but also the people, the authors who made the books. Insane. If you pay for premium, it will never. Yeah, exactly. So my hypothesis is why it works like that, right? So essentially, it interpolates the points of the training data, right? If you think about it, about the training data as points of the function on the graph, right? So this is the points. And the model is just a function that goes through all of these points, right? So essentially, two existing books are just 2 points on that graph. And when you interpolate between them, you basically have something between them, basically hallucination. right? So maybe it basically took the titles of two mathematical books and just smashed them together, and made the names of the author of this book and smashed them together and got something that doesn't exist. But it's an interpolation between 2 points because it's trained to be a function that just feeds that data or something like that. So if you think about it this way, it's a very primitive way of thinking about such models. I do realize that. It's a like oversimplification. But if you think about it this way, it kind of starts making sense why it makes up shit, because it interpolates between the points of the training set, right? Essentially. So in a vector space, yeah, basically. This is how I think about it. Of course, it's completely wrong, but it's kind of an analogy, if you know what I mean. All right, so we've got a sub from Fabus1184. Thank you so much for Twitch Prime. Thank you. Really appreciate that. It's not that wrong, I suppose. Maybe. I know nothing about mathematical modeling. Though here's the interesting thing. Isn't AI basically mathematical modeling? Right. So it is basically mathematical modeling. Right. And people were doing mathematical modeling way before computer existed. Right. So in case of ChatGPT, we're trying to model the speech ability of human. Right. So we are basically modeling like a small part of a human. Right. But we are building a mathematical model of that small part. All right. So what's interesting is that when I was in university, we had a course on mathematical modeling. I went to a university which is like basically industrial university. It's literally called Siberian State Industrial University, right? So it's an industrial university. It was specifically created to supply the nearby metallurgical plants with scientists that will, do the science work for the plants, right? So that's the university, the main purpose, right? And so it specializes on ferrometallurgy, right? And it had a course on mathematical modeling, and all of the examples of the mathematical models were about converting basically iron ore to like steel or cast iron and stuff like that, basically removing oxygen from the iron or adding oxygen to the iron and stuff like that. So all of that was this. And we were basically exploring the ways on how to create models for such industrial processes. So essentially, you have a very expensive industrial process, right? You can treat it as a black box. It has some input parameters, right? So the initial conditions, and then it has an output, how much steel you produced, right? So essentially you want to find the optimal parameters for that process, but you can't constantly run and check because starting the process is extremely expensive. You want to know upfront what are the optimal parameters for the process so it yields the maximum output. So what people do, they build mathematical model of that process. How they build mathematical model? They conduct a bunch of experiments on the real process, right? A bunch of points on a graph, right? So they actually do this experiment, then they take those points and they build mathematical model, and then they do additional experiments to verify that the model is correct, right? And we're studying not only how to do that without computers, right? So we were doing that in Excel. But we were also studying how to plan those experiments and how to calculate the price of this experiment so you don't run out of budget while building mathematical model for industrial process of producing iron, right? So, and this is basically what AI people do anyway, but not on industrial processes, but on human speech. That's basically that. Right. And when I started looking into machine learning and artificial intelligence, like I felt like I already heard all of that before. We already studied. It's basically mathematical model. It's just different kinds of mathematical modeling. Right. Gaussian processes. That's what I forgot already. I forgot everything from that course, but yeah. I think that's kind of funny. So essentially you can say people were doing AI way before computer existed, right? So mathematicians were doing like machine learning, but not machine learning, but this kind of stuff, like for a very long time. All right, so what we need to do, we need to now highlight this entire shite, right? So that's what we need to do. So we already know how to highlight things in the text editor. So let's actually run the text editor and see. I do ML and everything we use from 1670s. Okay, it's 80s. Okay. So essentially, we can select something. So as you can see, we already have a technical ability to display the selection, right? So the only thing we need to do now is when we search, right? So when we search, we need to somehow display that as well, right? So let's actually maybe open the main. I wish I could search within the file browser as well. That would be actually super useful. Just to search for main, just go there and then main, right? And I want it to be highlighted somehow. All right. Okay, good. So let me see. I have a couple of ideas. So selection. Let's find a place where we refer to the selection. Okay, so here render selection. So we only render selection when we are in selection mode, which raises the question, maybe we have to do a similar thing with the search. Render search. So if we are in a searching mode, we should probably display that thing somehow. Right, so we should display that thing somehow. And so here we just do that. Interestingly, I switch the shader and flush it regardless of whether we're in selection mode or not. I don't remember if it's necessary, but I'm not going to question that. Okay, shader for color. So we need to set shader for color because we're going to be rendering colored rectangles instead of text, right? So for rendering different things, we have different kinds of shaders, right? So since highlighting is basically rendering the square thingy, we just need a color shader, just a regular color shader. All right, so the next thing we need to do, we probably need to render the solid rectangle as the selection, right? So we're gonna put this in here. And the question is, so what's gonna be the coordinates of that rectangle? So solid rectangle. Renderer. So here is the signature of this thing. Here we produce the point, the left bottom corner of the rectangle, and here we provide the size, right? We provide the size of this specific rectangle and also the color. So in terms of the color, I suppose we're going to be using selection color, right? So selection color, what is a selection color? Okay, so it's not a constant by any means, so we're gonna put it in here, right? So it's a selection color. So the question is, what's gonna be the point in here? So it's gonna be P and size, vec2f P. So in terms of height, it's gonna be basically, we need to know on which row we're currently, right? So is there any way for us to know what row we're currently in? I remember there was a method that given the cursor would tell me the number, the row number in here. So let's go ahead and just search for that in editor, editor.h. There was something, row. Oh yeah, cursor row. There we go. So I can basically pass the editor there, and it will tell me the row. So here's the thing, right? So the since we're using continuous buffer, the cursor is also continuous, so it doesn't really know on which row it is, right? So because of that, we need a special function that basically computes the row. So this is downsides of using continuous buffers instead of like sequence of lines or something. We could actually cache that value and keep track of the rows separately to speed it up, but since I'm not really optimizing nanoseconds right now, so I don't really care about it too much. Right, so let's actually save the row, right? Let's save the row and let's provide the editor, and we've got the row. So now we need to find the y coordinate based on the row, which means that we have to do 2f. In terms of x, I'm going to set x to 0, so it's going to be glued to the left side. And y is basically going to be row multiplied by the height of the character. But the question is, what the fuck is the height of the character? Where can I get the height of the character? I don't remember. I think it's literally free glyph font size. I think that's what it is. Right. Let me find it. Free glyph font sizes. So we have a begin. So there's also cursor offset. So I don't quite remember, but yeah. So we're gonna keep it in here. Row float plus cursor offset. I'm not sure what the fuck is this shit, but okay. So that's cool. That should be enough. So, and in terms of the size, what's gonna be the size? So for X, it is going to be the size of the search buffer, I suppose. The size of the search. How can we compute the size of the search? I remember that the renderer had something for computing all of that. Image rect, render text. There was something for text. It's not a renderer, it's actually free glyph.h, right? Measure line size. There we go. Now we're talking. So we literally have a function that can measure the size of this thing. That's actually perfect. So let me see. So do we provide? We have to provide the atlas. I don't remember where we can get the atlas. I think editor contains the atlas. Atlas is basically like a single texture that contains all of the glyphs in there, right? So that's what we have. So now we have to provide the text. So the text is contained within the search data, and the size of the text is search count, right? And it also accepts the position. Oh, this thing doesn't return this the size. It basically accepts position where it starts, right? And then it updates it, right? It updates it there. This is such a funny thing to do. Right. So essentially it pretends like it renders the text and then it updates the position of the cursor to be there or something like that. Right. So essentially that means that we have to set, we need to have something like P1 and P2, right? So we have 2 points and P2 initially is going to be equal to P1. Right, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna just update P2. That's such a weird way. Why did I do it like that? Right, why did I do it like that? So, I mean, I understand why it is needed, because we're not using monospace font, right? Because the characters may vary. So the width of the characters may vary, so we have to iterate through each individual character to know the actual width of the entire thing. If we used monospaced font, we could have just take the amount of characters, take the width of the character and just multiply them together and we'll get the width of the whole thing. But with non-monospaced ones, you have to do some stuff. But we didn't really have to have this kind of interface. You know what I mean? We didn't really have to do it like that. But we still did that anyway. Okay. So, but what's funny is that, I think I need to use the cursor offset somewhere here. So cursor offset. How do I compute the cursor offset? So screen begin. Right. Oh, I know the position of the cursor, though. Right, do I? Do I actually know the position of the cursor, like where I render this entire thing? I think I do know that. You know, the cursor that you can actually visibly see. So let's actually run this thing. Right. So the position on the screen of this thing. Right. If I have this thing, I can probably use it as the beginning of the selection. That's right. So, but we need to find the place where we render the cursor. This is where we render the cursor. Okay. So simple solid. Okay, so cursor position. So where do we get the cursor position? We compute the cursor position. Oh, okay. So it is known up front in here, but it feels like we will need the cursor position in search. So I suppose I want to bring that stuff up a little bit. Yeah. So essentially we recompute the position of the cursor, but we will need the position of the cursor in search. I feel like we will need it in search. That's right. Okay. So, which actually effectively means that we're starting at cursor position, right? We're starting at cursor position. Then we're rendering the current search thing in here, which updates P2, right? It updates P2. And there we go. I think we have everything we need to actually render this entire stuff, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So we're starting at P1, but then we're not going to be using P2 because essentially what we have, so I probably need to draw what I mean. I need to draw what I mean. Just a second. So essentially we have text. So let me just do it like that. Boba. Right. So we have the cursor somewhere here. In the search buffer, we have Bob. Right. So we took the position of the cursor, which is here, and then we imagined that we rendered the search buffer Bob. And we got the point that is here. And what we need to do, having these 2 points, this is P1 and this is P2, right? So this is literally these 2 things. I think I want to actually render them with different colors so we can distinguish them a little bit better. Right, so this is going to be this thing. So I've got these 2 points, but what I have to do now, I have to draw a rectangle that looks like this, right? So what I have to do now to compute the size, I just have to get the width, which is the difference of axes between this point, and height is basically the height of the character, right? So that's what I need to do, and that's what I'm currently doing, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense? But you said P2 is P1 initially, but then it is modified by other function. Look, I'm passing P2 by a pointer, to function that measures the size, which means it will move P2 to the right by the size of the text it is rendering, right? So initially it's P1, but then as you pass it there, it's going to offset it to the right by the size, and now I have 2 points, I can take the differences between them and then can know the width of these 2 stuff. It's kind of a weird API, it could have been simpler, but it is what it is. It's immutable reference, who said that to you? How is that an immutable reference? Where did you see an immutable reference? There is not a single constant here. Are you trying to tell me that you know my code better than me? Bots? Promote. Okay, so we need to construct this thing. Right, so this is going to be the width. And the height is going to be the height of the character. Height of the character. So I don't remember, like, I remember there was a constant, right? So, but we already lost the constant. Free glyph of font size. Yesu, kawaii freaking desu. So that's going to be the height. And in terms of selection, this is going to be that. Let's actually use a red selection. Let's use a red selection, my comrades. All right. And that should be it, actually, believe it or not. I don't see any other stuff that needs to be rendered. So let's continue. And let's open the main. Maybe the editor. It would be better to open the main because I know what to search for. Right. It doesn't do shit. Probably because I didn't recompile anything. Yes, I didn't. I just ran this entire thing without any recompilation. Classic. Thank you so much. All right, so let's build this entire shit one more time. And of course, it doesn't even compile. It doesn't even compile. Okay, and yeah, so here I actually refer to the editor as editor, not E. I think I should actually use just E, right? But anyway, but let's just go ahead and do that. What's going to be the next thing? We forgot a semicolon. Let's put a semicolon in there. What else do we have? Editor cursor row editor, sure, just the editor, thank you very much. And what else do we have? Oh, and now I have to do that. And this is the reason why I like for these kind of objects to use just a single letter, because I'm referring too much to their fields, right? I'm referring too much to their fields, and I just don't want to prefix too many characters in here, right? If I was using C++, I would just make this a method, and the editor would be something like this, so all of the fields are automatically available to me. Right, or maybe if I was programming in Jai, right, it was programming in Jai, I would use the using thingy, right? In Jai is actually a pretty cool language. So if I had editor, which is a structure which contains some stuff in here, right, and then I would have editor render, right, and then I would accept the editor, right, by a pointer, and then I would say, okay, put using in here, which automatically exports all of the fields of the editor into the current scope, right? And if the editor has like a data, which is a string, I could just refer to the data, and it will automatically refer to editor data. And you don't have to put even an arrow in here because the Jai supports auto-dereferencing, right? So, and essentially it almost like acts like this of C++, but in this case you can actually have multiple usings, right? If you have two things, like something like renderer, you can say use both of them, and it will import the fields of both of them if they don't conflict, right? If they conflict, maybe there will be some problems, but if they don't, it will just import all of them. So which is kind of convenient. Right, so yes. I wish I could program in Jai. Unfortunately, this language does not exist. Okay, go. So that's why we are forced to program in C. Such a good language. Too bad it doesn't exist. Oh, okay, that's very interesting. Since we're just reusing cursor row, we don't really need to compute that row because it's all automatically computed by us by the computation of cursor pose. Maybe this should be like a separate method that we can call to. C ain't that bad with wall and Valgrind. Yeah, sure, but for instance, it doesn't have good variadics. Right. Unfortunately. So I think it's called date items in this specific case. Variadics and Jai are fucking awesome. They're like variadics in Go. Right. So they're actually useful. Like imagine actually useful variadics. It's insane. So we can take a look at them. Right. So modules, I think basic print. So the classical example is just a print function. Yeah, there we go. So this is how we do that. args dot any. That's it. So, and if you want to pass those variadic arguments to other variadic function, you can spread it, and that's it. So let's take a look at print to builder. I think, where is it defined in? So we probably have to grab this entire stuff. We're going to be using a rip grep because we're trying to be modern, right? Okay. So this is args. You can even have an inline assembly. Can your C++ do that by the standard? I think according to the standard, C++ doesn't have an inline assembly, right? But yeah. Can your C++ do that? And can it refer to things defined outside? I think it also can, but I mean. Right, so let me see. So what I want you to show, the loop that iterates through the arguments, but it's too deep in abstractions. Right, where is it? Where is it? But effectively, you can just like then for loop this entire thing, and it acts like an array. Yeah, there we go. So print sequence to builder. So this is variadic, and then I can say for args, and I can just like iterate through this entire thing. Easy, right? So it's basically an array, but it's so syntactically convenient to use. You know, it's very syntactically convenient to use. Okay. Alrighty, so we're gonna have, let's try to rebuild this entire stuff. Okay. We need to open the main and just search for some stuff. And I think we're ready. Yo! Can you see that? Can you see this shit? I think red is not particularly great color for this kind of stuff, but I think it's kind of cool. If that's so cool. Yo, this is so freaking cool. And there's a lot of interesting things. Right, so we're still in the search mode, but yeah. Else, yeah. Closed. Yeah, so let's actually close this entire thing, but yeah, so it needs a little bit of a polish, but like the main thing kind of works. I suppose it would make sense to actually make it bluish. Yeah, I feel like it has to be a bit bluish. Also maybe even a little brighter in that sense. You know what? I think I automatically open src main, so I don't have to navigate there. So yes, kawaii freaking this main. Why is it greenish? Because I'm an idiot. Yes, I know. It has to be like this because it's RGB. B is the third one. B is the third one. Okay, good. Doesn't look Pogue? Right, so there is another interesting thing because it may partially match. Right, it may partially match, but as I add more things into the buffer, right, as I add more things into the buffer, it's going to still append them there. So this is something that we'll need to fix. And yeah, so I still can edit things around. So I suppose we need to, yeah, we need to actually do something about that. Right, when I'm trying to navigate while searching, right, when I'm trying to navigate while searching, I still can navigate, which I think is not the correct thing to do. Right, so let me see, so I try find main, right, and I go up and down, I still can do that, and it actually brings highlighting with me until I press escape. Right, so essentially I feel like while I'm in search mode, I should not be able to navigate. We are navigating through functions like line up, line down, character left, character right, word left, word right, and so on and so forth. I feel like we need to just go through all of these things and just like take into account the search mode, right? Actually, this is a lot of like different things. So retokenize, render clipboard, copy clipboard, paste, start search, search matches, add. So I think I'm going to copy paste the list of functions that I have to go through to make them search aware, if that makes any sense. So there's also update search, update selection. I think selection should not work while we're in the search mode. So clipboard copy, I think copying doesn't really make much sense, but pasting does make sense. So editor backspace. Right, so when I press backspace, what I'm thinking is that in case of a searching, right, if we are in a search mode, it makes sense to maybe just like remove one character from the search buffer, right? So if search count is greater than 0, just take this thing and decrement by 1, right? Just decrement by 1. So otherwise, just do the usual thing that you do in there. So there is like a little bit of a separation now. So this is a backspace. In terms of delete, I feel like delete should not be aware of any of this stuff. So if searching, just return. Right. So it should not do anything. Should do anything with that. So what about line up? This one is also. So I think I'm going to copy paste this thing. So when I do line up, effectively what I do, I press up and down. Though I feel like up and down maybe should move between the matches, between next match and the previous match and stuff like that, as well as Ctrl+F, right? So should move between the matches. Should move to previous match. I think this is something that would be actually kind of cool. Right, because you press up, you go to the previous one. So what about the down? I think down is similar, right? If we are searching, right? If we are searching, we return, right? But then to do, we're gonna say this thing should go to the next match. Should go to the next match in searching mode. Okay. So about character left and character right, I think we should just block them. If E searching return, and the same thing is going to be here, right? So in both of them, we're going to just do that. Word, we can also block them. I just don't see any use for them, right? Searching return. Update selection. I feel like update selection is something that also, yeah, I feel like it also starts the selection. Yeah, it also starts the selection. So if we are in searching mode, right, if we are in searching mode, we should probably ignore this thing. But when we start searching, we should probably do something with the selection. Right, so here's the interesting thing. We start searching. If we are in selection, right, selection mode, first of all, we probably have to disable the selection, right? We definitely have to disable the selection. And we need to take the selection and put it into search, right? We need to put it into search. So, but how can we do that? As far as I know, selection, it may consist, like the points of the selection are effectively, can be in any order, right? They can be effectively in any order, so we will have to sort them somehow. So maybe I'm not going to do it right now, so I'm going to put it to do in here. To do, put the selection into the search automatically. So this is going to be additional to do. Right, update selection, copy. If you're trying to copy something into this thing, right? If we are in searching mode and we're trying to copy something, does it make sense? What does it make sense to copy? I think it doesn't really make sense, much sense to copy anything. So if we're searching, I'm going to just return. And this is going to be the behavior for now. Again, it's quite important that it's only for now, it's not forever. Anything can change at any point. Software is very fluid, right? So that means if requirements change, right, if something is not convenient, we can always change that. It's not set in stone, right? So this is something like that for now. But later, right, but later, when we gather more information, some things may change. That's normal. Okay. So, right, and I cannot navigate, I cannot do anything, but if I press backspace, it actually works correctly. I really like that. So I don't like that if it doesn't match something, it still adds that thing to the buffer, right? You know what I mean? So what I'm thinking actually, maybe we can go the Emacs route, right? So for instance, if I do void, it highlights that, but then if I put parent in here, it just puts this thing in red in here, and what's funny is that it kind of adds it, but it doesn't go any further. I want to have something like that, but I'm not sure how exactly to display that because we don't have a mini buffer, right? We don't have a mini buffer. So what I think is that if we can't find the next selection, we can just not put anything in there. Right, so I think that's a good idea for now. Right, it's a good idea for now. So editor, insert buff. Buff. Right, we append something there. right? We append something there, and then we search for the next match, right? And if we found the next match, we just leave it as it is. What I'm thinking is that, what if we keep track of whether we matched or not? Matched false, and then we can say matched true, right? And then if here we didn't match anything, we can essentially take the search, take its count and subtract. You see, we're appending buffer len amount of characters. We can say, okay, subtract that shit from here because we didn't find anything, right? We're not gonna insert things that we can't find. So it's gonna stay on the same place. I think that's cool, right? Though, the thing is, if you are at this specific place, right? If you are at this specific place, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's totally fine. Yeah. Okay, so that should work, I think. For now. That's reasonable. It's basically how Emacs works, at least, right? So, which is not a good indicator, necessarily. Okay, main. And I tried to add additional thing, and it found it, but if I try to add more, okay, as you can see, I'm typing right now, it doesn't add anything, right? But main, yeah, it finds it. Okay, so now, we still didn't implement jumping to the next result, right? So this is something that we didn't implement yet. And this is something that we need to implement it. I think it's quite important. I think I missed a sub. Zvony Codes, thank you so much for tier 1 subscription with the message top kek. Top kek indeed. Just a reminder, by the way, right? If you have any like technical questions, like what's the best language on planet Earth, or how do I start programming, what kind of book I have to read, you can put that message in here, and I will have a moral obligation to at least answer something reasonable. Right, because you put your money into a question, so it would be difficult for me to say, I don't know, you actually put some money into a question, so it's gonna be difficult for me to just dismiss your question, and that's the way you can basically gaslight me into answering something like reasonable. Just telling you, so just a small tip, right. Not that you would get that money. Well, I mean, it's not about money, right? So I won't get that money for sure. But again, as I said, from the moral point of view, I just, as a human being, I will feel bad that you gave away your money, asked the question, and I didn't answer it properly. I will just feel bad. I did like that a couple of times, and I feel really horrible because of that to this day. Right? So it's just like difficult for me to dismiss the question when people actually like subscribed and asked the question. Right? So I will try to answer at least something. I will try to provide at least some value. Right. So even though I don't get money, but I mean you paid the money, so you just like don't want to feel like a scammer. Okay, so we'll get the sub from Luis Rebaixado. Thank you so much for 8 months with a message, not a question message here. Just wanted to say your streams are effing great and teach me a lot. Thanks, you're welcome. I also actually learn a lot on my streams, right? Because some of the things I learn, I discovered by basically talking through the problems, right? Do you notice how, like, I always, if I encounter a problem, I try to split it into smaller pieces and talk through this process of solving them. And you learn something from that process, but I learn things from that process too, right? So quite often we discover things together, right? So I'm also learning things. Are multi-taped Turing machines better than single-taped? I don't know. I never actually explored multi-taped Turing machines. I only explored a single-taped ones, and I think I didn't explain the Turing machines fully. I didn't explore them fully, right? So there's still some things that I would like to explore with one-taped Turing machines. And as soon as I'm satisfied, I may switch to more complicated Turing machines, and we'll see. Right. Have you heard of Busy Beaver? Yes, I've heard about it. So we have a sub from Lazy0008 with a question, cats or dogs? I'm personally a cat person, right? So, I don't know, like this is because I'm very relaxed and I just like to sit in my couch and just chill, just like cats. And cats, like we're like vibing together usually. Dogs, they're usually like to play. They're very cheerful. Like I'm an introverted person. It's just like, it's kind of annoying. I'm not saying that dogs are annoying. Dogs are amazing animals, and I like all of the like animals, right? But I think I vibe with cats more than I do with dogs, right? So that's my answer. So I just vibe with cats more. Okay, good. So what I was doing, I wanted to find the next search, right? So I wanted to find the next search. So how are we going to be finding the next search? Well, we can do that through up and down, but the usual thing is when we are already searching, right? So if E searching, then what effectively what we will do, we're just going to switch to the next match, right? So, and if we're not searching, we're going to be switching to searching and do the usual thing. All right, so how can we do that? Right, we can start, yeah, we can start the following way. It's a very similar process as when we insert new characters, right? So, but we're going to start position at cursor +1. Right, to the next character. Right, we're gonna start to the next character. And we're gonna do that while it's less than count. Right, so plus. If editor search matches at, right, so E position, right, if we found something, we set the cursor at that specific position, right? We set the cursor at that specific position, and we just break out of that. If we don't find anything, we're just gonna leave the cursor where it was. So I think that's good enough, right? So that's good enough. So let's actually test it out. Okay, good. So we're gonna start with include. Okay, Ctrl+F. Ctrl+F, Ctrl+F, Ctrl+F. Works. Incremental search. So find all of the ifs. Do we have any exits? Exit. There's no a single exit though. Is there any returns? Yeah. Cool. That's pretty cool. So that is pretty freaking epic. We have an actual search. Yeah. Sometimes the camera is too far away from 00. So I think we should, and when you switch to the file browser, it just like takes too much time to go there. I think we have to do something about that. Yeah, it's pretty convenient to know Git now. That's cool. All right, so let's find some shaders. All right, let's find some shaders. Still works. So this is literally the shader that is responsible for rendering the text. I can actually modify this shader and reload it. So yeah, you can edit the editor within itself. Isn't that poggers? I think it's pretty fucking poggers. I mean, it uses OpenGL, right? So when shaders usually with OpenGL, they're dynamically loaded, they're dynamically compiled. Why not just allow to dynamically recompile it when you modify it? Why not? I don't see any reason to not to do that. So I think that's pretty poggers. That's absolutely poggers. Okay, good. So what do we have? Darwin. So I feel like I want to actually stop the search when I press enter. So let's actually quickly do that. When I go to main.c, SDLK, a return. Okay, that's cool. But is it when... Oh, it's in the file browser. It is in the file browser. SDLK return. So we insert new. Oh, this one is interesting. So it will wait. It will literally insert new characters into the state. Oh fuck. Okay. This one is interesting. So what's gonna happen if we insert like a new character? Include new. Nothing really happened. And I suppose this is because we just don't display multi-line selection. That's probably why. Right. This is something that we'll have to fix at some point. But anyway, if it's return, I think I need to dispatch between whether we are editing, right? Searching, I mean. If we are searching, I'm just gonna do stop search. Right, so this is the editor stop search. Otherwise, I'm going to insert a new line, right? So I think that's a little bit better. Searching is not a pointer. Okay. All right. And then I press enter, and it stopped the search, and that's precisely what I wanted. If error. That's cool. So, and let's do a committee. So the last time I actually lost all of my work related to search. I don't want to do that again, right? So, right. So let's say initial implementation of incremental search. There we go. I'm gonna push that right into the repo. Right. So I'm gonna refine that off screen, right? So I created a couple of to-dos, right? So because right now it's rough around the edges, but I documented the main, the main development of the feature. So we know that feature is there, and now we're forced to support that feature. So does anyone have any questions, right? So does anyone have any questions before I go? So let me maybe put something like this, and maybe I should actually start the editor itself. 1 hour stream is actually 2 hour streams. How are you? I'm fine, surprisingly. I'm surprisingly fine today. No whoopsies this time. Yeah. Interesting thought. Font size may not need to be a thing since you can simply zoom the camera. I'm sure I'm not the first person here to make the connection, but it's just cool thought. So the font size may make sense because the way we render that, right? So we just render the texture and we stretch the texture, not the glyph. But here's an interesting thing. The glyph is a vector image, but we first convert it to a raster image and then stretch it. So because of that, to increase the resolution, the font size may be a thing. Oh, I know what you mean. So from the user perspective, you mean we don't need the notion of the font size from the user perspective because the user can always like zoom in. Oh, and by the way, I think I'm wrong because we are now using the distance field, and distance field actually automatically increases, like it interpolates the resolution. So even like if you go really close, it still looks okay, right? So we're very, very close, but it still looks reasonable because we're using distant fields, which kind of smoothed out the edges and stuff like that. Do you intend to daily drive dead? Probably not, but if it gets to a decent level, I think I might use it on my streams for explaining things, right? So when I need to explain some sort of kind of algorithm, right? So I think using that for that would be actually kind of cool, right? Because you can just start this thing. So let's actually start it. So I don't want to rebuild it, so I have to just put it like this. I didn't really want to start it with a file. I wanted to start it just alone, right? For instance, if I want to explain something, I may start just like doing stuff around like that, and it looks cool, and it just zooms around as I type things, right? So I may explain what is a variable array member in structures, right? So you can have structure full, and then I can explain that at the end of the structure, you may have something like this, and it doesn't have any size, but you can still access it. It's just like needed for structures with variable size, right? So they can have a variable size array at the end or something like that. And you can just explain all of that. So here you can have the size and stuff like that, and it's kind of cool that it moves around. So it's pretty interesting for explanation. It makes an interesting explanation, I think, right? Because it looks dramatic. So, but daily driving that, I don't know. It depends on how far we will get it in terms of features. How do even you see that you have Jai? The same way John uses C++ when he has Jai, because Jai is still written in C++. It's the same way. The problem with Jai, so there's again, I repeat that over and over again, but the huge problem with Jai is that it doesn't exist, right? So, and the way I work is that I write some code and I share that code, and I want people to be able to compile that code on their machine. If I do that in Jai, I just can't share that code because not everyone will be able to do that. So because of that, I just can't integrate the Jai fully into my job, quote unquote. That makes any sense. This project has already any name? Well, it's dead. You can find more information about this project in here, right? Why is it so slow? Oh my god, it's slowest chat I've ever worked with. Yeah. Yeah, it didn't work, so the command doesn't really work correctly. Will Jai go self-hosted at some point? Why do you ask it like I'm the developer of Jai? I have no idea. I'm just using it. People also keep asking me, like a lot of people keep asking me, like how to get into beta, like, or can you get me into beta? I have no idea. I'm not the developer of that language. Like I have nothing to do with neither with John nor with Thokla at all. I'm not associated with any of that stuff at all. I'm just using this thing, right? So John doesn't even know me. Like he doesn't even know who I am. Like seriously. People keep asking me like I work there. No, like I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna be self-hosted. I don't know when it's gonna be released. I know nothing. I know as much as you. So, come on. No, I'm not in no way associated with Jai at all. A lot of people think now. I don't know. People think to have me. All right. I guess that's it for today. Thanks everyone who's watching me right now. I really appreciate it. Have a good one, and I see you all next time. It's actually kind of cool how when you resize the window, it just like also well, I mean that was not really that great, but yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching, and I see you next time. Love you all.